Thanks to Kokushibo, I now had an idea on how Douma could combat Muzan and his curse. It surprised me how easy it seemed for the upper moons to surpass Muzan, but considering how strong each of them was, I knew it had to be possible. Although, I really didn't know how to bring it up without being suspicious. My mind thought it over and over as I made my way back to the cult. Once I arrived, I crept into the main worship room to see how the introduction ceremony was going. There was a small bunches of people having conversations with one another and a large crowd surrounding Douma as he spoke. I walked over to him, greeted some of the new members along the way. "My queen," he said as I stood right next to him. He wrapped his muscular arms around me, squishing me into his body while he continued to speak with everyone. Little ideas had swam in my mind of how I was to address Kokushibo's findings with Douma, but the best one I could think of was one that I chose to pursue. All the members of the cult cleared out of the room, and Douma escorted me back to our bedroom, rambling on about his night. "There were a lot of new members," he said, excited as he devilishly ran a hand over his. "How was your night?" he asked. "No troubles?" My mind flashed to the jewelry store, then to Tamio, and finally to Kokushibo. So much had happened in such a short night, and I didn't know how or what I should or shouldn't tell him. "It was great. I got some new things, and I got you something," I said, smiling at him when he entered our room. I had set the little pouch and put our rings on a desk in our room, out of sight from Douma's view, so that if he walked into the room earlier without me, he wouldn't have noticed it. I picked it up, softly hearing the two metal rings ding against one another. Douma sat on the edge of the bed, swiftly removing his turtleneck, leaving him shirtless, his snow-white skin glistening in the low light of the room. I walked over and sat down next to him, as he watched me fiddle with the bag as I pulled it open. I reached in for the thicker ring, knowing it was his, and pulled it out. "This is for you," I said under my breath, grabbing his left hand and nervously reaching to place it on his finger, scared it wouldn't fit. The ring glided over his slender finger as I gently pushed it past his second knuckle, resting at the base of his finger perfectly. I looked up at him, a smile forming on the right side of his face. He looked down at his hand, examining the ornate design carved into the metal. "Do you like it?" I asked. "Of course I do. It's amazing. Thank you, Yin," he said as he softly planted a kiss on my lips. "I got one for myself too," I said as I pulled the other ring out to show him. He took it from my hands and grabbed my left arm, doing the same I did to him, and the ring fit me perfectly since I had already tried it at the antique shop, and the metal design matched his identically. "Isn't this sweet?" he said, wrapping his arms around me, leaning himself back into the bed as my body followed, eventually landing on his toned chest. He kissed me passionately as he gripped me insignificantly, gently tugging at my clothes as if they were a nuisance. "Hey, Douma," I said, muffled between his lips. I gently pulled away as his eyes opened, his cheeks rosy from the heat of the moment. "I've been meaning to ask you something." "Sure, what is it?" he asked. Does, Muzan watch us when we,
I can't say it on YouTube.
with each other?" Douma laughed out loud at the question, forcing a smile to break from my stoic stature. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, darling, but no. I shut him out. I have the power to do it." Interesting," I said as I hopped on top of him, his hands immediately gripping my hips gripping my hips as I straddled him. I leaned him over, close enough to where I could whisper into his ear. "Is he listening to us now?" I said, trying to sound "Can't say it on YouTube." "Hell no," Douma said in a raspy voice that turned me on. Bingo. "Douma, we need to talk. Keep Muzan turned off." "Huh?" he said in confusion. "Muzan, you need to keep him turned off for the time being, okay?" "Wait, we aren't having..." he asked as I climbed off of him, realizing my plan was working. There was no way Muzan would want to see Douma and I getting friggity all the time, so I knew he would force Muzan out, probably at his request since Douma had no shame in his game. "We can later, Douma. This is important," I said as I began to pace, trying to form the right words. "Darling, what is it? You're worrying me," he said, grabbing my hand and pulling me into him. My eyes began to water from relief and fear as I looked and took a deep breath, trying to shove away the tears. After I ran into Douma, I ran out of time before I could find shelter from the sun. I thought I was going to burn, but when the hot rays hit me, nothing happened. All I felt was warmth. I couldn't tell him that I tried to take my life, so I made something up to spare his feelings. That's a secret, and I knew I'd have to keep that forever, I thought to myself. And I waited to tell you because I didn't know if Muzan could find out through you or not. Douma's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of his head. Never had I seen him so scared and lost for words, but instantly his face changed, softly and smiling as he tilted his head. "It's okay, darling. No one will find out," he reassured me, but his confidence upset me. "I'm your wife, Douma. Stop hiding your feelings from me," I told him as I pulled my hands from his grip. "This is serious. If Muzan finds out or gives up waiting, it's over for you and I. He'll take me away," I yelled, tears falling from my eyes as I finished speaking. Douma finally let his facade fall from his face, dropped into his hands as he rubbed his face in frustration. He stood up from his bed, towering over me, his face motionless, expressionless. He took me in his arms and pulled me into his chest. "No one is going to take you away. We'll figure something out," he said quietly. He pulled away and bent down to where his eyes were level with mine, and took my cheeks in his hands, wiping away the tears that stained my face. "I'm sorry. Hiding my feelings is just a bit of a habit. I don't want to see you scared of me. But the truth is, I don't know why this is happening." His words triggered more tears. They uncontrollably fell as I forced myself into his arms again, his body rigid and tense from the emotion. "I want to be human with Douma. It has to be the only way," I thought as I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to get the tears to stop. "But will he turn back into a human for me?" The answer to that question haunted me as we stood there in silence, both wondering what we should do next. Hey guys, all my Demon Slaying fans, you probably have been wondering where I have gone. And my goodness gosh, I have been doing this a lot to you guys. But I had no internet for like 4 days. Was it 4 days? Yeah. But basically what had happened was my backup battery to my internet had died. So I had to wait to get that fixed. Good for nothing Wi-Fi. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and I love you all so much. Bye. Mwah.